The word get is a verb. The dictionary defines it as receiving or having possession, use, or enjoyment of, coming to a specified place, arriving, reaching, and lastly, to succeed, to become enabled, or to be permitted. So with all that said, did you get it? Good. Welcome to Get the Podcast.
You better get it while the getting's good. It won't be long until I'm gone in all likelihood. Misinformed is an excuse, be the engine that could. I know my roots, I know my rights, and still misunderstood. I'm getting to it.
Hey, what's up, people? It's your friendly neighborhood Negro, JC. And Get the Pod is a micro pod where I give my 2 cents, a couple quarters, and a few dollars on some hot button issues in not only the Black community, but the overall global community. All of the episodes will be under 20 minutes with the goal of, hopefully, getting you to the point of fruitful and meaningful conversations with those in your immediate friend groups and circles. So, you got it now?
Yep.
You get it yet?
Think so.
Good. Let's go. So, overthinkers, this is going to be a very short one that's very succinct and to the point. There are only 6 continents on this world. Europe is not a continent. A continent is described as such: a large landmass surrounded by an even larger body of water, right? Or completely surrounded by water, excuse me. So, if we take all of the countries that make up the European Confederacy, neither of them are separated by water from Russia and Asia, right? So if that is the case, and the dictionary defines it as so, and we have genuinely accepted the dictionary's definition of what a continent actually is, then the continent of Europe is non-existent. Calling Europe a continent is like me being from the United States of America and calling Mexico and Canada continents. No. Do we share continental landmass with these 2 countries? Of course. But this is the continental landmass known as North America. Classically, we have learned that during the Persian Empire, we would describe the landmass that makes up the majority of the quote-unquote Asian continent. Let me stop saying European, because European is not a continent. The landmass that makes up the most of the Asian continent would be A, Russia, and B, China. During the Persian Empire, it was called Persia. Most of Asia was called Persia. A large percentage of the Orient was called Persia. So, of course, the continent was called Prussia, right? This is long before European influence. It's about the rise of that dynasty when Europeans start to become relevant, but not quite. So then, after, many wars and imaginary lines were drawn and everything, we stopped calling Prussia, and it was then called Eurasia. All right, now, since that's the last thing we have as a historical benchmark, that is what I will hence refer to the quote-unquote continents of Europe and Asia as. I will refer to it as Eurasia, because there is a great cognitive dissonance in my brain when it comes to me calling fucking Europe a continent when I know the person that I am, this great scholar of words and knower of definitions, is like, yo, my nigga, Europe is not a continent. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, this has been a quick history lesson. Europe is not a continent. Eurasia is a continent, but Europe is not a continent. And then when we talk about why this happened, people may ask, well, how did this become what it became? How did we start calling Europe a continent? How did Europe start to become defined as a continent in our history books? Well, that's quite simple, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. That is called white supremacy. that is nothing but white supremacy. That is the white peoples of this world separating themselves from their brothers and sisters in flesh in the effort to define themselves as something other and wholly different instead of something that is completely ordinary and mundane. They are no different than anyone else. But the quickest way to separate and then subjugate is to make it seem like you're more than what you are. That is the goal of things. So that is why, ladies and gentlemen, we call Europe a fucking continent, but it is not. It is white supremacy at its finest. And I would like for all of us, myself included, to stop giving white supremacy power and supporting these lies and like trivial fallacies that we have been forced in over the years. We have to come back to the truth because, as I have tatted on me, logic is truth. And if it is logical, then it must be so. So if the dictionary defines a continent as something that's being a large landmass surrounded by water, Australia qualifies. Africa qualifies. North America qualifies. South America qualifies. Antarctica qualifies. But Europe? No, sweetie. Europe and the, 20 countries that make it up do not qualify. Because at the separation of Europe and Asia, there is no land mass. There is no water. Only land. Also, a lot of people think classically about white supremacy as something that is inherently harmful. But not all forms of white supremacy are malicious, okay? Saying that Europe is a continent is not malicious. It is not one of those things that will hurt someone. Nobody that has ever said that Europe is a continent or Europe isn't, well, maybe is not. I had to do the research on that. But nobody that has ever said that Europe is a continent has suffered bodily injury from uttering those words, right? But the problem with it is it's part of a larger narrative that is hurtful. It's part of the narrative of covering up history to or whiting out the parts that we don't like and writing something else in, right? So the fact that the first 12 to 14 dynasties were actually held by Africans and people from the dark continent should be a thing, should be taught in schools, needs to be recognized. But instead, we have Africa only being recognized as a third world country with poor people and no history. Before, of course, the Middle Passage and slavery. That is a dangerous narrative. That is something that is harmful. And the effects of that can be felt and rippled all the way across to this continent with its black people. That is harmful. And you don't really get away with that narrative if we don't do things like say smaller lies. Like, oh, yeah, Europe is a continent. So again, let's just be all cognizant, white people included, of calling spades spades and saying what the fuck shit really is. Europe is not a continent. The first 12 dynasties of the world, 12 to 14, I have to go back and read, but the first 12 dynasties of the world were inherently black or African or whatever you want to say. I don't know. Water isn't wet. Okay? We gotta stop saying shit like that. All right, guys. Toodles. Bye-bye. Get the Podcast is a production from the OVT Network with original artwork by Kenzo Sturtevant and original music by Sincerely Blue. The podcast is hosted and edited by me, your friendly neighborhood Negro, JC. If you found value in anything I've said here today, please subscribe, like, share, and comment on YouTube or Instagram at the OVT Network. You can also connect with me, JC, on IG at JC from the OVT. Got to keep it simple, right? Don't forget to rate us 5 stars and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever your podcasts are casted. And lastly, did you know that if you share this podcast with just one person, we would double in size the community?
So, with that being said, get to sharing, goddammit. Thanks so much, guys. Appreciate you listening. Peace.